Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. Hope your Friday morning and afternoon will go well. And just want to come to you and present a couple of thoughts for you to consider throughout the rest of the day and into the weekend. How many times have you been involved in something that is routine, but at times can be more intense than at other times and so forth? And at some point you just say, okay, I've just got to clear my mind and you be able to focus on what's happening. Well, that's not an unbiblical concept. In fact, Paul would say some things about that in Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. Romans 12, 1 and 2 is what I call a pivot passage in a book. In other words, it is the connecting thought or the connecting verse of one section of a book to the following section of the book. And Romans 12, in my judgment, does that quite well. It connects the intellectual arguments of Romans in chapters 1 through 11, which are the foundation, to the second main portion of the book, which is chapters 12 through 16, that talk about the practical aspects of living in light of Romans 1 through 11. So Romans 1 through 11 is the intellectual argument. Romans 12 through 16 is the daily life practical living aspect of the book. Now, when we think about that, I want to notice what Paul says, in particular in verse 2. I'll read verses 1 and 2, but I want to focus on verse 2 for a minute. He says, and I'm reading, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Notice in verse 2, he talks about being transformed. You know, Christianity is a transformative religion. It is the religion that transforms one's relationship with God, one's own heart, one's relationship with other people. But we live in the world where's that struggle. There's the struggle to conform, and then yet there's the responsibility and the privilege of being transformed. So how can we be transformed? Well, notice where Paul starts. He says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How is it that we can take time every day to renew our mindset, to clear our mind, and be focused on what God would have us to do and what He would have us to be? Well, a number of things could be said in answer to that. I'm just going to mention two. And they're based on a statement that Luke writes in Acts chapter 6 and verse 4. And this is one of those passages where you read over the passage several times, and then you realize from the passage itself, or somebody makes a comment, and you just go, the light sort of goes on. It's like, oh, okay. You remember in Acts chapter 6, the first 7 verses, there's a situation where the Hellenist widows were being neglected in the daily distribution, and that's causing a problem among the saints in Jerusalem. And the apostles tell the brethren, okay, you choose out 7 men of good reputation and so forth to appoint over this business to handle this situation. And here's why they encourage the saints at Jerusalem to do that. Verse 4 of Acts chapter 6 says that the apostles are saying, we will give ourselves continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word. You see, that was their role. That was the work that God gave them to do. And for them to step into the other area, although it's a needed and important situation to deal with, for them to step into that area means that they're going to be distracted from their role and their work. Notice how their work is described. We will give ourselves continually to prayer and the ministry of the word. I realize he's talking about preaching the gospel primarily there. But I want you to notice the order of those two statements and the connection between them that helps with renewing the mind. Prayer. that opportunity for us to open up our hearts and minds to God and to say things to Him in terms of what we're thankful for, what we're grateful for, what we wish, what we need for ourselves and for other people. All kinds of different prayers that can be offered. But notice the order, prayers first. We normally would want to say for the apostles, oh, it's preaching the gospel. Well, that's true. But notice that prayer is before the ministry of the word in Acts 6 and verse 4. I want you to think about the fact that when we pray to God every day, and we should start every day with prayer, we're opening up, we're cleansing the mind of all the things that come upon our hearts that are legitimate things, but we lay them at God's feet. And then we can take time to put something positive back in through the ministry of the Word. And I'm talking about personal study, personal meditation, personal reading of the Bible. Just notice the order. Prayer, we let go of a lot of the baggage. The ministry of the Word, we replace that with something that is wholesome and nourishing to us. And then when we proceed through the day, the mind is renewed. The devil knows that if he can get the mind of a disciple, he can get the disciple. That's why God tells us to renew the mind so that we can be genuinely transformed. Acts 6 verse 4 is a good way for us to do that. Hope this has helped for you today. Just a brief message, just a word of encouragement, maybe some things for you to think about. If you'd like, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. We update these messages on a regular basis and try to provide something that's helpful to disciples in a real world. If you don't want to subscribe, at least share it with somebody who might be able to pick up something that will help them plant and water. God will give the increase as long as we plant and water. And that's what all of this is about anyway. Thanks for listening today. Hope the rest of your day goes well, and hope to be able to see you and be with you again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.